There are reports the BBC is going to fire Top Gear host Jeremy Clarkson because of an outburst over steak and chips.
No one saw this coming. 1 minute, Jeremy Clarkson was tearing down a country road, cracking jokes and pushing Top Gear to global fame. The next, he was gone. No farewell on screen, no last laugh with May and Hammond, just a sudden silence that left millions of fans staring at their TVs and wondering what ripped the driving force out of the world's biggest car show. But what really went down behind the scenes? Some blame a single explosive moment that changed everything. In the next few minutes, we'll crack open the rumors, sift the facts, and piece together the truth. Stick around because one overlooked detail might just change how you see Top Gear forever. Long before the world knew Jeremy Clarkson's for car stunts and outrageous insults, he was a sharp-tongued journalist with a reputation for saying exactly what others wouldn't dare. He started out writing for small newspapers, ripping apart cars and industries with the same brutal honesty that would later make him a household name. His reviews weren't just technical, they were entertainment. It wasn't long before the BBC came knocking. Top Gear had been around since the late 1970s, but back then, it was a quiet review show, safe and boring. But when Clarkson entered, he turned driving into drama. Every episode was packed with ridiculous races, risky challenges, and jokes that made executives nervous but kept viewers glued to their screens. Clarkson, along with Richard Hammond and James May, transformed Top Gear into a cultural monster. They didn't just review cars, they raced them against fighter jets, turned them into boats, and drove them across deserts. The chemistry between the hosts was electric. Clarkson was the loud, fearless leader. Hammond was the cheeky daredevil. May brought dry, awkward humor. Together, they were unstoppable. By 2015, Top Gear wasn't just popular. It was dominating global television. Over 350 million people tuned in. It was Britain's biggest TV export. The trio had built an empire of DVD sales. Even those who didn't care about cars watched for the chaos and Clarkson's unapologetic commentary. But behind the roaring engines and soaring ratings, pressure was building. Clarkson's blunt personality wasn't always easy to manage. His off-script remarks sparked controversy and public apologies from the BBC. Inside the network, tensions simmered, but the show kept pulling record numbers. Yet beneath the surface, Clarkson's relationship with BBC management grew strained. His jokes pushed boundaries, sometimes too far. Fans adored his fearless attitude, but behind the scenes, people whispered that it was only a matter of time before things boiled over. By the time Top Gear hit its peak, every joke and every insult made headlines. For millions of fans, Clarkson wasn't polished. He was raw, loud, and unapologetic. But that same edge was also pulling him towards disaster. Some called him bold, others called him reckless. The BBC, caught in the middle, faced constant complaints. In 2011, they issued an official apology after Clarkson joked that striking workers should be taken out and handled. The backlash was instant, but Clarkson brushed it off like dust on his jacket. Just months later, during a filming trip to North Yorkshire, everything came crashing down. What started as a simple disagreement over dinner spiraled into a full-blown scandal. And when the truth surfaced, Clarkson's entire career and the future of Top Gear were filled with chaos. By early 2015, the cracks behind the scenes at Top Gear were impossible to ignore. Tensions had been building for months. Clarkson's relationship with BBC management was strained. The network had already warned him that his behavior had to change after past controversies. But the pressure of the show, endless travel, and growing frustrations boiled over during that filming trip. It all came to a head when Clarkson returned to the hotel expecting a hot meal. But by the time the crew arrived, the kitchen had stopped serving food. What should have been a minor issue turned into a breaking point. Witnesses later revealed that Clarkson lost his temper with producer Oisin Timon. The heated exchange quickly escalated, turning physical. Timon reported the altercation to BBC management, and the network launched a formal investigation. Clarkson was immediately suspended. Top Gear's upcoming episodes were shelved indefinitely. For millions of fans around the world, it felt like the show had slammed into a wall at full speed. Despite the global outrage and massive support for Clarkson, BBC executives faced an impossible decision. Top Gear wasn't just a show, it was one of Britain's most profitable exports, but the pressure to maintain professional standards was unavoidable. Inside BBC headquarters, the debate raged for days. Could they afford to keep their biggest star, or had Clarkson finally gone too far? In the end, the decision was made, and when the verdict dropped, it didn't just end Clarkson's time at Top Gear, it reshaped the future of the show forever. On March 25, 2015, after weeks of speculation, they announced that Jeremy Clarkson's contract would not be renewed. Just like that, the most famous presenter on the planet's biggest car show was gone. For millions of fans, it was a moment that felt surreal, an empire collapsing almost overnight. But the backlash came fast. Clarkson wasn't just a TV host, he was a global icon. Within 24 hours of the announcement, over 1 million fans had signed a petition demanding his return. Firing Clarkson came at a massive cost. Top Gear wasn't just popular, it was one of the BBC's most profitable shows, generating over £50 million a year. Clarkson's brash style, risky humor, and unpredictable personality were key to the show's success. Now, the heart of the show was gone. The fallout didn't stop with Clarkson. His longtime co-hosts, Richard Hammond and James May, were left facing an impossible decision. Fans loved the brother-like arguments. Without Clarkson, that magic was broken. For weeks, the future of Top Gear felt miserable. Could the BBC rebuild? Could the show survive without its most polarizing star? Behind closed doors, plans were forming. But out in the public, one thing was clear. The world's most iconic car show had been torn apart, and Clarkson's next move would leave everyone talking. The moment Clarkson walked away, Top Gear started to crumble. It didn't matter how shiny the cars were or how slick the production looked, the heart of the show was gone. Richard Hammond and James May, loyal to their longtime friend, refused to carry on without him. Within weeks of Clarkson's firing, both announced they wouldn't return. Fans weren't surprised. The chemistry between the three wasn't something producers could fake, no matter how hard they tried. But the BBC tried anyway. They relaunched Top Gear with a fresh lineup, banking on big names like Chris Evans and Matt LeBlanc to revive the magic. What happened next was brutal. Fans slammed the show for feeling forced, awkward, and painfully unfunny. Every attempt to reinvent the format only reminded viewers what was missing. While the show stumbled, Clarkson wasn't sitting still. Behind the scenes, he was working on a comeback that would change everything. His next project wasn't just about cars, it was about proving he could walk away from scandal and still dominate global TV. And when the world found out what he had planned, it sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Clarkson teamed up with his old allies, Richard Hammond and James May, and made a deal that shocked the industry. Amazon Prime, hungry for blockbuster content, handed them one of the biggest streaming contracts in history. The Grand Tour was born, with a reported budget of nearly $250 million for 3 seasons. The trio wasted no time getting back to what they did best: outrageous challenges, jaw-dropping locations, and the same offbeat chemistry that fans had been missing. Viewers flocked to the new show. Within weeks of its debut in 2016, the Grand Tour became one of Amazon's most watched programs, proving Clarkson's appeal wasn't tied to the BBC. It was tied to himself. The stunts were bigger, the cars faster, and the jokes just as risky. But the comeback wasn't just about entertainment, it was personal. Clarkson had walked away from one of the world's most iconic shows in disgrace. Now he was back on top, silencing critics who said his career was over. But Clarkson wasn't done surprising people. His next move took his reinvention to a place no one saw coming. His next project wasn't about roaring engines or explosive stunts, it was about farming. And believe it or not, it changed his career all over again. Clarkson's farm hit Amazon Prime in 2021, and fans couldn't believe their eyes. The same man known for crashing supercars and insulting politicians was now knee-deep in mud, struggling to run a farm in the English countryside. But this wasn't some polished reality show. It was raw, chaotic, and brutally honest. Clarkson bought a 1,000-acre farm in the Cotswolds years earlier, originally as an investment, but when the farm's manager retired, he decided to take over the operations himself. There was just one problem: he had no idea how to farm. It was supposed to be a passion project. Instead, it became one of the most talked-about shows of the year. What made Clarkson's farm different wasn't just the humor, it was the vulnerability. For the first time, viewers saw Clarkson out of his element. The show's unexpected success proved that Clarkson's appeal wasn't limited to petrolheads. It reached new audiences, from farming families to city dwellers who'd never watched Top Gear or the Grand Tour. Clarkson's sarcastic humor was still there, but underneath was a genuine curiosity and respect for the hard work of rural life. It was proof that no matter how many times people counted him out, Jeremy Clarkson had a way of coming back stronger. But success always comes tangled with controversy. Even after rebuilding his career with the Grand Tour and Clarkson's Farm, his outspoken nature kept dragging him back into headlines for all the wrong reasons. For some, he remains a legend, fearless, unfiltered, and brutally honest. For others, he's a cautionary tale of how fame mixed with controversy can burn out even the biggest stars. But whether you love him or hate him, Clarkson's determination to stay in the spotlight is impossible to deny. Jeremy Clarkson's story is far from simple. To some, he's the king of unscripted television, the bold, unapologetic voice who turned a quiet car show into a global empire. To others, he's reckless, a man whose jokes and temper have landed him in more scandals than most celebrities see in a lifetime. But one thing's clear: Clarkson changed television forever. Clarkson remains one of the most polarizing names on screen, and through it all, he stays exactly who he's always been: loud, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. The real question is, will Jeremy Clarkson finally run out of second chances? Or will he keep turning controversy into the ultimate comeback? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for further updates, and click the next video on screen now for another interesting story.